it got me through a period in my life that was extremely hard. You know, I just lost my father. He took his own life. I had a really hard time at home. I had a really hard time at school. I was suffering depression, anxiety, and this was the series that snapped me out of it. Hey guys, Downtix here. Most of us are trapped at home because of COVID-19, so this video is going to go through what, in my opinion, are the best games to play or revisit during isolation. Every channel has their own list videos or take on top 10 videos, so I thought I would just wing it. Go without a script, just list off 10 games that I really enjoyed so you can see the raw emotion these games give me, because there are a few that really get to me and still get to me today. So be sure to let me know in the comments what your recommendations are, but let's get right into it. I want to start with my favorite strategy game of all time, Red Alert 2. Now, this game had an amazing soundtrack, it's iconic. I still think about it today. I still put it in some of my videos, so I might overlay it right now to this video. How much? It's amazing, go look it up. The art style still holds up today. This game looks beautiful. I know you can't go in full HD, but it's still fun to play. If you can find a group of friends to play with, highly recommend doing that. Or just play through the campaign. There's 2 campaigns, one for each side, if we're not counting the DLC. It's cheesy, but cheesy in a way that they knew they weren't taking themselves seriously, and it was live action acted campaigns, and it was really good.
Is it done, Yuri?
No, Comrade Premier. It has only begun.
So I highly recommend it if you've never played a strategy game before, you've never played Red Alert series before, you've never played any of the Command & Conquer series before, really jump in, try out Red Alert 2. Can't recommend it more during ISO. Now let's talk about my favorite game of all time, my favorite trilogy of all time, Mass Effect 2, 1 and 3. 2 first because it's my favorite of all time, but the first starts off kind of slow, and it's a little bit dated. It's what, like 13 years old right now as of this video. But if you get past the initial slowness, and if you take it as a game that requires you to sit there and commit to, like you're watching a movie, this is a highly rewarding trilogy. If you get past the first little barrier and you start getting into it, it's a series that has choice like no other. You make a choice and you'll see it come to fruition in the third. For example, if you just never meet one of the characters in the first, there's a completely different scene in the third where you meet. And this would have had to been scripted, this would have had to been written. If you look at the script in the third, it's like 3 feet off the ground. It was just, this series was written with love, with care. I know there was a bit of controversy with the third and its ending, but the third was all about the journey. It was the journey, not the destination, but with the DLC, they fixed all of that. Now, I can't recommend this series more. It got me through a period in my life that was extremely hard. You know, I just lost my father. He took his own life. I had a really hard time at home. I had a really hard time at school. I was suffering depression, anxiety, and this was the series that snapped me out of it. Literally, like this. I can't explain and I can't express more how well put together the storyline in this game was. It was like watching 3 separate movies, and honestly, if you haven't played them, just play them. If you don't have the patience, you should, because you're in ISO. If you don't have the patience to get through the first, just start at the second and play the third. But highly recommend playing them all in order. Fantastic series. Get onto it. I can't praise it enough. Whew, okay. Now that we got through that, let's go to Diablo 2, actually. So Diablo 2 spawned a whole genre of isometric loot-based RPGs, and they still hold up today. It's 20 years old. The game is 20 years old, but you can jump in, play it now, and it looks amazing. The sound design is amazing. The soundtrack is immersive and ambient, and I frankly like it more than Diablo 3. Diablo 2 is just a superior game. It's amazing, and if you have a friend that you can play with, this is the game. This is the game to play with friends. because you jump in with them, you play through the storyline together, co-op. It's amazing. If you have a partner and you have a Switch, highly recommend getting Diablo 3 on Switch because you can play together on the same screen. Very good co-op, but Diablo 2 is where it's just a superior game. If you haven't played Diablo 2 and you realize so, go pick it up. Go have it. Now, moving on, Bioshock. Bioshock's another story-driven game like Mass Effect, but not as long as Mass Effect series. But it is a shooter that's driven by its story, and it was written superbly. It still holds up today, even though it is 13 years old. It's groundbreaking and breathtaking. The first time you enter a submersible and you enter Rapture, it took my breath away. It's this underwater city full of, I guess, magic, you'd call it, but it's science. You inject yourself with these plasmids, you get different abilities, you try to survive. It is a survival shooter at the end of the day with RPG elements. You're scrounging around for ammo, you're scrounging around for health, and it's a thrilling game. It really is a thrilling game. So if you haven't tried Bioshock before, give it a shot. I mentioned the Switch before. This is coming to Switch soon, so that might be something you wish to play in bed or while you're in the bath, or I don't know, while you're walking around your apartment or house. Give Bioshock a shot. Definitely an amazing game. And since we're on the topic of the Switch, I'm going to go through a few Switch games you 100% need to get. Zelda, Breath of the Wild. I'm not even going to talk about this game for too long, because if you have the Switch and you haven't played Zelda Breath of the Wild, you have a problem. You need to play this game. It is breathtaking. It's Breath of the Wild breathtaking. You have to play this game. It is amazing. You just pick up a Switch. Just go buy a Switch. I know everyone's bought a Switch and you can't find them anywhere right now, but if you can, go and get one. Get Zelda Breath of the Wild. It's an amazing game. Guys, just get it. Like, I don't even want to describe it. Just get it. Just trust me on that. And now let's talk about the game that I think blew my mind the most when I was growing up.
It's me, Mario! Hello!
Mario 64. Now, prior to Mario 64, I was playing the Sega Mega Drive and the Super Nintendo. And most games on that were 2D. 2D platformers were extremely popular back in those days. Any 3D game that you could play, like Doom, for example, wasn't real 3D. It was just, I guess, an illusion of 3D. But Mario 64 came out, and this was the first true 3D game I played. I fell in love. I was in complete awe. Like, today you take it for granted, but when I was growing up and I played that game, it was groundbreaking. It was the first time I played a true 3D game, and I was just jumping around the beginning area, the castle, just enjoying the fact that I had that range of movement. And the game still holds up today. Like all of these games in this list, it still holds up today. If you haven't played Mario 64, you need to. It is an amazing game that spawned 3D platforming genre completely. It was just amazing. And if you have played 64, give Mario Odyssey a shot. Give Mario Galaxy 2 a shot. All of those games are fantastic. You might not like the fact that they're child-friendly. You might be just a pure shooter guy, or a pure RPG guy, or a pure strategy game guy, and it's too childish for you. Just give it a shot. They're really good series. The Mario series are always just really good. Nintendo puts so much effort into their games that you always get something from them, no matter who you are. A child, an adult, 80-year-old, doesn't matter. Alright, moving on. Let's go to another BioWare title, like Mass Effect. But this was before Mass Effect's time, Knights of the Old Republic. This was a Star Wars themed RPG adventure. And it truly showed the potential of a Star Wars story. So when the latest Star Wars movie Trilogy came out, naturally I was fairly disappointed because I'd played Knights of the Old Republic and I saw what a Star Wars story could be, and that's a disappointment for another day, maybe a video for another day. But Knights of the Old Republic, amazing storyline. You play it just for the story, but if you want, action, this was the first, I guess, dice roll combat that was real-time action-based. So behind the scenes, when you selected an attack, a dice would roll, like in Dungeons & Dragons. If you reached over a certain threshold, your attack would land, your attack would miss, whatever. It was like that all behind the scenes, but while that was playing out, your character was using his lightsaber, clashing with the enemy, reflecting blaster bolts. It was kind of the first game, or one of the first games, that had a alignment system based on your choices. So you would choose to either kill someone or not kill someone, paraphrasing, and you'd get light and dark points. And that system would lead you to be able to use certain items based on your alignment, or people in your squad would either like you or dislike you, to the point that if you got too evil, some light side characters would leave your squad. And if you got too good, some dark side characters wouldn't appreciate that either. And there'd be different endings based on how you treated the story. And it was one of the first games to ever do that. And it did it so incredibly well that a lot of games after that used the same system, like the Mass Effects. And frankly, if you haven't played it, you should. It has, I don't want to say why the story's good, just in case it spoils anything. Because there's a knife's edge, if I say one thing, you're going to pick up why it's so good. So just trust me on that. If you haven't played it and you've got the time, give it a shot. If you like Star Wars at all, give it a shot. It's just a great game. Next game is Skyrim.
In their tongue, he is Dovahkiin, Dragonborn.
Skyrim is one of my favorite games of all time as well. It's like Breath of the Wild in that the scale is truly breathtaking. When you get past the kind of tutorial area, everything's open to you. You can just go wherever you want, do whatever you need to do. You can take missions from anyone. You can find missions in the world, or just make your own story. It's the last Bethesda game that I thought was almost flawless. I mean, besides the obvious Bethesda bugs that Skyrim has, but the bugs is kind of part of its charm in a way. There's not too many if you do patch it, or if you do use player mods. There's a lot of player-based mods that do fix a lot of the problems, and then you can just, once you finish the game, download mods that add completely new stories. Like the fan base in this game have extended the life of this game so incredibly far that it still today has new content. You can't not play Skyrim and run into the same playthrough that you did before. You might play a stealth archer over and over and over again because it's just something that you fall into, but your experience will be different every time because you go down a different path, or you download a mod that changes things up. Skyrim, if you haven't played it, you should. You should just, I don't know what you're doing if you haven't played Skyrim and you like RPGs at all. If you like anything open world, Skyrim is a game that developers after have just tried to emulate, and no one has done so as successfully as Skyrim. So pick up Elder Scrolls Breath of the Wild, aka Skyrim. I guess Breath of the Wild is like a successful Skyrim clone in a way, in their own take. But anyway, those two games are great. Skyrim is amazing. Now, let's get into a game that is a lot older than the ones I've just mentioned. It's over 25 years old now, I believe, because it was 1995. Donkey Kong Country 2. Now, this is a platforming game made by Rare. Rare also made, I guess, everything successful in the 90s was a Rare game almost. Rare was just on the ball in the 90s, and this is still one of the best platformers of all time, and it had this painted art style that is... If you've got Donkey Kong Country 2 today, if this came out today from an indie developer, you would 100% believe it was a modern game. It looks like it's modern, but it was made back then because of the art style. The art style looks so incredibly good. And Rare was just known for having a fantastic ambient soundtrack, fantastic sound design. Fun fact, all of the music from my channel my starting theme, my end theme, and the latest theme that I'm using is from Donkey Kong Country 2. So this was a really influential game for me. I used to play it with a friend. I used to go over to his house. We used to take it in turns playing through the game. You know, he would play one character. When that died, I would play as the next character. It was really a really good game. If you've never played Donkey Kong Country 2 and you like platformers, this is the game to play. So this is the game to play if you like platformers. If you like 3D platformers, Mario 64, Odyssey, Galaxy. If you like more exploration, if you like open world games, that's Zelda Breath of the Wild, Skyrim. If you like more story-driven stuff, you got your Knights of the Republic, you got your Mass Effect trilogy. If you like strategy games, you got Real Alert 2. If you like shooters and survival shooters, Bioshock. If you like your isometric RPG, loot-driven, Diablo 2. So, final game. Probably a game that's made the most amount of impact on the most amount of YouTubers. Banjo-Kazooie on the Nintendo 64, and it's been remade on the Xbox. So if you have an Xbox, you can pick up the Rare Collection. I'm not sure what exactly it's called, the Rareware Collection, and Banjo-Kazooie is one of the games on that. Rare just nailed the 90s. Rare just nailed it completely, and this was a smash that anyone that had the game absolutely swears by. We've got YouTubers like JonTron and the Completionists that attribute a lot of their love of games to Banjo-Kazooie. It had this amazing soundtrack that is just so influential, and I'm sure that if I put it over what I'm saying now, if I put some of the music over now, you'll notice it just from people using it on YouTube videos, because it's just so influential. It was a 3D platformer like Mario 64, but it improved upon Mario 64 in so many ways. In so many ways that I just can't list them now. It was just such a great game that it left an impression on me and so many people that I just can't describe. And maybe the nostalgia doesn't hold up, but I've recently replayed it and absolutely loved it. Absolutely loved the series. And if you're an ISO, give it a shot. There's so much love went into this title. Even just little things that have not even translated over to modern games now. For example, there'd be a music clip that's playing, and you're walking through the world, and if you go up a certain height, the clip would lose some of its bass and it'd be more treble, and you kind of feel like you're on a higher elevation. But then if you jump into the water, it would be more bassy and lose some of its treble, and you'd feel like you're underwater. And the only sound that carries underwater is those heavier bass tones. So there's little things like that went into it, little details like that went into it that really make the game hold up. So I think that's 10. I think that's 10. So those are my top 10 games, I think. If it's 9 or if it's 11, I apologize. But I want to mention some other games, some honorable mentions, one of which is Halo. If you like shooters, it's out on Steam right now. You can pick up the whole Halo collection, or you can just pick it up on Xbox. Amazing soundtrack, just like Banjo-Kazooie, just like Donkey Kong Country 2. Great gameplay, fantastic shooter. There's no RPG elements to it. It's just all about shooting. There's no looting, there's just shooting. If you want looting and shooting, another honorable mention is Borderlands. You guys know I cover Borderlands on this channel. And if you haven't picked up Borderlands, and you like looters, you like shooters, get into it. Just buy it. Just buy the series. Borderlands 3 has come to Steam recently. If you are planning on picking that up, I have a creator code in the description below. That will help me out a lot, but the series is just good. It's just a good series. I mean, third's kind of not as good as the second in my opinion, but definitely get through them if you like that series. But if you like multiplayer games, the game that I've sunk the most amount of time into is Dota 2. It's a MOBA. It's highly addictive if you can put in the time, go through the tutorial, play some matches. There's some toxic people in it sometimes, and you will get some shit until you learn all the nuances of the game. But you pick a hero, you try to destroy the enemy's buildings, essentially. If you destroy their main building, you win. And it's a 5 versus 5, and you just have a lot of fun if you get used to it. And also, it's a lot of fun to watch. Since a lot of sports are cancelled, watching Dota 2 matches is actually a lot of fun. The grand prize is what, like $5 million per person for the top prize at the international. It's absolutely crazy. The community behind Dota 2 is phenomenal. I was gonna go to Copenhagen to watch the latest international, but I don't think that's happening because of ISO. So, whatever. The next honorable mention is Dragon Age, another BioWare game, another game that is fantastic for ISO because the trilogy, Dragon Age 1, 2, and 3, they don't have the same level of coercion that Mass Effect trilogy has. Like, the choices you make in the first don't matter in the second, third, for example. But the storyline is really good. It's choice-based, the combat's really nice and enjoyable, and if you like a more fantasy setting, kind of medieval, with magic, with Templars, with mages, with dragons, then Dragon Age is your thing. Give it a shot. There's love, there's romance. It was one of the first series, actually. I think the first Dragon Age Origin, was the first game to introduce gay romances and bisexual party members and gay party members, and so there was inclusion in the game, and it was one of the first that did that. Mass Effect obviously does that as well, but Origins was before it. And yeah, if you want to build a romance, Mass Effect and Dragon Age is there for you. Finally, Minecraft. For obvious genre-breaking reasons, it's a game you can figuratively and literally get lost in. If you just want to waste time, if you just want to be sucked into a world where there is no people on the streets, there's no people bothering you, Minecraft is the way to do it. Turn off villages, and you are the only one in this world. You punch trees, you build buildings, you dig under the ground, get resources, deck yourself out. It's just a fun little game. So, thank you so much for watching, guys. That's my little emotional take on what the best games to play during ISO is. You can tell quite clearly I haven't written the script, and quite clearly I haven't thought about it, and this is all kind of in one take. So excuse me for the rambling, excuse me for taking so long, so much of your time. I just really wanted to express myself in a way that's different to what I normally do, because I mean, games are an emotional journey in a lot of ways, and if you're struggling, if you're down on your luck, if things aren't going well for you right now, these games will make you feel better, 100%. These are healing games. So thank you so much. Let me know your opinion in the comments below. I'm Dantix. Like, comment, subscribe, do all that stuff. Thank you so much. Peace.